In Book 1, Chapter 3 of Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle discusses two topics: the nature of the conclusions of political science or ethics, and the character that will be required of the students of this science. On the first point, Aristotle notes that ethics is an inexact science, and in this he seems to differ from Plato, who thought that there was a form of justice and a form of the good which we can know with greater and greater clarity outside the cave. Aristotle says we should expect only the degree of precision which is appropriate to this object, and because there is great diversity and variation in the spheres of what is noble and what is just, and because the goods and the use of these goods differs from lifetime to lifetime, from circumstance to circumstance, we cannot expect precise answers. I think it's important to recognize here that Aristotle is not giving us a license for relativism, for supposing that anything can be good for anybody. He's suggesting that there are a set of objective goods in ethics, but that there is a range, especially in regard to their application in a particular person's lifetime and circumstances. What is good for one person will not automatically be good for another person. What is good will vary to a good degree with circumstances. And this means there can be no exact formula for happiness. Choosing the good over the course of an entire lifetime will require good judgment and prudence on every occasion. So we shouldn't expect formulaic or precise mathematical answers. Do A, B, and C, and you're guaranteed to be happy. That's not the way human happiness and human flourishing work, Aristotle is telling us. Aristotle says we should be satisfied with this discussion of ethics if we can describe the truth sketchily and in outline, because we are making generalizations on the basis of generalizations. Here's one way I think we can think about that. The first level of generalization deals with our determining the good or the virtue to pursue in a particular set of circumstances. This can be stated as a generalization. I might say, thinking of a fireman facing a burning building, that in general it is good and courageous for the fireman to go into the burning building. Now that's a generalization, and it can be overturned by particular circumstances. If the building's about to collapse, or if there's some other circumstance that mitigates against it, I might say that's not the rule to follow. But I can make a generalization that it is in general courageous for firemen to enter burning buildings, and that could be a good guide for action for this particular man at this particular point in his life. The second level of generalization, the generalization based upon generalizations, I think comes in when we think about how to combine all the goods and all the virtues over an entire lifetime. So think of my fireman trying now to reconcile his obligations and his virtues as a fireman and as a father and as a citizen and as a member of a church community and the like. He has to make all these decisions, balancing these things. This requires a further level of generalization. And I might even say a third level of generalization, where I tried now as a philosopher to describe what does it mean to live a good life generally for all people, for everyone, not just this one fireman with his multiple different circumstances, virtues, and roles to reconcile, but for any human being. Notice I've risen here to a level of generality so high that I'm not going to be able to make even as precise a statement of what courage is as I could make for the fireman facing this particular burning building. So generalizations upon generalizations means we're going to lose a certain level of detail and precision as we try to give a more and more general account of noble and just and good actions. Aristotle then emphasizes again that it is the mark of an educated person to look only for as much precision in our answers as the nature of the object studied allows. So it's because the real objective nature of human noble and good actions varies as much as it does that we have to be satisfied with less precise answers. We could state the converse of this claim as well and say that to ask for more precision than the subject matter's nature will permit is the mark of an untrained mind. And we can think of this as a kind of warning Aristotle is giving to his students at the beginning of this study. If you're coming in here expecting exact, precise, formulaic answers for the good life, for ethics and political science, you need to correct that expectation right now, because that's not the nature of the object or the nature of the study that we're making of that object. Aristotle's second point in this chapter is his famous, or perhaps infamous, argument that certain character traits of youth disqualify one from the study of ethics, or at the very least, they interfere with that study. And he gives two reasons for this, two pieces of evidence. First, that ethics and politics is a science of experience, and youth, just by definition, has less or none of this experience. No matter how widely traveled he is, no matter how varied his experience has been, a 20-year-old will not be familiar with the full range of actions and the full range of circumstances that require judgment and decision over the course of an entire human life. We would expect people with more experience of the world to be more skilled in choosing, if only because they've been exposed to a much broader range of circumstances. His second piece of evidence is that young people tend to follow their feelings, and for this reason, the rational study of ethical behavior will be useless for them. Now, he adds immediately that this is not a matter of years only. It doesn't matter if one is immature in age or immature in character. If they are dominated by their feelings, they cannot profit from this kind of study. So it's not a matter of age alone, but of character, and especially of the balance of reason and emotion in one's soul. I think the key point to get out of this is not that Aristotle is somehow prejudiced against teenagers, but that reason must rule over your desires and your actions to a certain degree before you can profitably study ethics and politics. In other words, this is an advanced study that requires a certain level of character development, a certain level of maturity. It's not going to be helpful for people who haven't resolved that particular problem, who haven't brought their emotions under the control of their reason to a significant degree yet. So that's his argument for excluding youth or immature people from the profitable study of ethics. So that's been my quick look at Book 1, Chapter 3 of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. I hope you found it helpful. Thanks for watching today. Goodbye.